everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Glad You Asked. So I'm Tiffany. Here's Teresa.
Hey, everybody.
And we have a few interesting topics to review with you today. So let's get started.
Yes.
All right. Before we go into the topics that we have today, a couple of reminders or refreshers for you. If you have not yet been to the KW Central YouTube channel, you have to go there. There's so many amazing resources that are available for you all. And so we want to make sure that you know what's available, where to find it. So the KW Central YouTube channel, it has all of our past Glad You Asked, but there's so much more. There's also now some tech videos. If you haven't mastered Command yet, or haven't even gotten started, make sure that you check out Jonathan's tech videos. They're excellent videos, easy to follow, and you can get some things set up very quickly. So we just want to point to, again, resources that have been made available for you. Make sure you know where to go and how to access those resources. Anything about that?
No, you're doing good.
All right. Second thing that we have for you is a reminder, and well, in this case, really a notice for you. We try to make sure that you get important information that you need from the Market Center. But what we found is that some agents are having emails go to accounts that they're not checking, or that it's not the best way to contact you. So we are asking all of you, if you need to update your contact information, please contact Emily Allred at clientcare832@kw.com. So Emily will be able to update your records and make sure we have the best way to contact you, especially if there's some sort of compliance issue that's happening that you need to be notified about, and make sure that you have the information that you need. And so if you do receive emails, especially from the KW BIC email, you should open and read that. We are sending them for a reason, and specifically, typically, for compliance purposes. Any other things to share about that one?
That's good. Yeah. Just make sure, as Tiffany said, to update your email. And it very well could be when you join, you were using maybe a personal email or a different email, and now you're using the KW email and you may not be getting things. So make sure that you update that, and make sure to check your text as well. So even if your phone number change, let us know. And of course, if addresses change, let the office know. And who else are you supposed to notify when your address changes? The Real Estate Commission.
How quickly?
How quickly, people?
10 days, right? Within 10 days.
Exactly.
So we just want to make sure that we have your contact information so that we can get the latest and greatest out to all of you.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so before we go to today's discussion topics, we've got a really good one for you guys. You probably have seen this yourselves out there. Was that the last update? Yeah, we're going to do those. Okay. All right. So the plan for today, we are going to talk about 3 of the policies and procedures that we have that you may or may not be aware of. And we want to make you aware of them and remind you of where to go to see and to view all the rest of our local policies and procedures. And then we have a topic that a lot of you guys are running into. I'll give a little spoiler alert. In new construction, we're going to talk about some challenges in new construction and some reminders about what to do if you run into those challenges. All right.
Very good.
Okay. All right. So
keep going.
Okay. All right. You want to do the first topic?
Okay. Which one is your first one? This one here?
Yeah.
And commercial. Yes. All right. So I've been seeing this a lot lately, where agents may be coming in contact with someone, a potential client who has commercial property, or who would like to buy commercial property. Well, that's a whole nother beast, and it requires another level of E&O insurance that is not included in the residential E&O. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about and had our E&O rep on, Paul Bondi. So he talked about E&O from the residential standpoint, where there's another level of E&O that handles commercial. And you don't have that with our standard E&O policy. So if you run into clients who want to sell commercial property and you want to represent them, or buyers who want to purchase commercial property, we ask, according to the policy, that you work that and do that in conjunction with someone who already is signed up with KW Commercial, because they have the E&O coverage there. So they really need to be the co-listing agent, or they need to be the buyer's agent and assist you, or maybe you get a referral fee, but you don't have to worry about, we're not going to talk too detail about it here. We want to make you aware of the policy. And do you have the policy up,
I
Tiffany?
do. I have the policy.
Okay.
So I will read this policy to you now, but just a reminder, you can view all of these policies, and we recommend that you do in the KW intranet. So if you go to the intranet, you'll find the KW local policies and procedures, and you'll find this one and the others that we're going to talk about in the intranet. All right. So the commercial sales policy, all commercial listings must be listed by a participant of the KW commercial division. Any agent that is not a participant of the KW commercial division with a potential listing must co-list with an agent who is a member of the commercial group, or refer the listing to the commercial division. And as Teresa mentioned, the reason why is for the additional E&O coverage requirements. Any agent wishing to assist buyers in commercial purchases must co-broke the transaction with a KW commercial agent, or refer that buyer to the commercial agent. So same thing for listings or buyers when we're talking about commercial. All agents desiring involvement in commercial transactions are subject to educational requirements established by KWRI and our market center leadership. And that leads into a coming soon. A coming soon.
Yeah, so because we're seeing so many agents take an interest in the commercial aspect of real estate, we thought that it would be a good thing to have someone do a training on commercial sales. So I've spoken to someone about that, a commercial agent who does it on a regular basis and who is very knowledgeable in it, about doing a training at the market center. So I don't have a date yet. However, it will be coming soon. We've had the discussions and they've agreed. So be on the lookout for a commercial training coming soon. Excited about that.
Woohoo!
Yep.
So if you're interested, if you think you might want to know more about commercial, and if you know other agents who are interested, get the word out. Be on the lookout for this coming soon commercial training. All right.
And one other thing, I see your comment there, Stacy. Yes, absolutely. I do want to add this, and I think I lost it. No, I got it back. I do want to add this. If you're interested in it, see me. There is a link or form and an actual application really with the KW commercial division that you have to go through and answer some questions, fill out the application. It's quite cumbersome to find if you try to go out there yourself. In mykw.kw.com, it could be kind of cumbersome to find. So if you come see me, then I'll get the link right to you. Okay.
All right.
Moving on.
Sounds great. All right. So the second policy that we're highlighting, and glad you asked today, is our telephone solicitation policy. So you may or may not be aware of this policy, but our job as broker in charge of a firm is to make sure that you know and that you comply with the commission rules, the local, state, and federal rules and laws concerning all kinds of things. But here specifically, we're talking about the do not call list. And so we have an entire telephone solicitation policy. It is number 42 if you go into the policies and procedures. Now, this one is very long, and so I'm not going to read it to you. It's a
Thank you.
5-part policy. I know, I don't want to read that. It's a 5-part policy, but I will tell you the titles of the parts
Mhm.
that you need to review and make sure that you're in compliance so that you can avoid some very stiff fines and penalties
Mhm.
if you violate these do not call restrictions. All right. And so the 5 parts that are covered in this policy include what to do before soliciting business by telephone. So again, how to check the do not call registry, what kind of access you have to it, how to get to it. It gives you that information. The second topic are exceptions. Who or what exceptions are there that would permit you to legally call someone, even if they're on the do not call list? The third section talks about conducting telephone solicitations, like how to actually go about doing it in a proper way that won't violate any local, state, or federal laws. The fourth topic is returning a call to a consumer whose name appears on the list. And so there's a detailed list of steps that you should follow if someone has contacted you and you're returning their call, but they are on the list. Just again, to make sure that you're covered and in compliance with those rules and laws. And then do you want to do that last one? Number 5.
I'm gonna let you're doing such a good job. Why stop at 4?
All right.
Let's do 5.
The last one is what are the rules concerning calls to referrals? So if someone has referred someone to you and they're on the do not call list, what do you need to have in place so that you can call that referral? And so it's important to know what documentation needs to be in place for you to even contact a referral if their name is on the do not call list. So there's a lot of information that you need to be aware of. We've consolidated it. We have it right there in the policies and procedures for you. Again, that one is number 42 of our KW Central local policies and procedures. And a reminder, you can find those on our intranet. All right. Number 3.
Okay, what's 3?
Exhibit A. Woo.
Advertising. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can read this here.
Equal housing logo.
Oh, yes. Okay. So here are some things about advertising. And advertising is not just putting our name on a sign and saying for sale, or putting on our name on a business cards. There are some other requirements that we are supposed to meet when we are advertising. And one of them is the equal housing opportunity logo. That is supposed to be on our advertisement, especially on our for sale signs, our business cards. They are supposed to be, that logo is supposed to be on all of our advertisement based on the size. There are some rules there, so we put those in the policies and procedures. I will not go through all of the details of the size, but if you go out there to the policy, there's an entire exhibit or addendum that you can read that gives the instructions on what it needs to be on and the size requirements. What else we got there?
All right. So in addition to that, it's Exhibit A in the policies and procedures. So you'll go to the very end and it's the exhibit. There are several other advertising reminders, advertising policies. Remember that when you are a real estate broker, you are bound to the commission's rules regarding advertising. So just a reminder, some of those: no blind ads. When you are a licensee, you have to make sure that all of your advertising includes your firm, your company name, company logo. So make sure you're aware of those. But there are several other advertising requirements that you might not be as readily aware of. One of the first things that's right on the very top there are advertising requirements from the MLSs. So again, not just the real estate commission's rules, but MLSs have certain advertising requirements that you have to meet. Then there's state and federal law, of course, which we always have to keep an eye on and make sure that we keep you all abreast of those changes. Now, again, the advertising exhibit, it's about a page and a half. And so I recommend that you go and see that for yourself. But we cover things from advertising by provisional brokers, because some of the rules are different there. We have quite a few PBs that just joined that will need to be aware of those. We also have advertising requiring or things that are required if you're doing internet advertising as opposed to your print. We have social media advertising requirements. If you're advertising on social media, reminder that you should not include any financing terms in your advertising. You're not a lender. You're not approved to use financing terms. So that's one of our local policies and procedures. Other advertising things that are covered, advertising features as new. We have a whole section on that because there have been some issues with using the word new in something that is not truly new. So the definition of what is considered to be new, for sale signs, and what needs to be on those to protect you from or with errors and omissions insurance. When you can use sold signs. If you were not the listing agent, can you put a sold sign as the buyer's agent in somebody's yard? I mean, there's all kinds of advertising topics that we address in this advertising exhibit. We recommend it to you. You might want to go out there today and read through, even if you can't get through the entire policies and procedures. It's a fairly long document. There's about 43 total policies and procedures, but go and dig into that advertising exhibit. Again, it's about a page or so, page and a half, but it's vital information you need to know, because one thing that all of you do, or you will do, or you must do to be in business is you must advertise. We want you to do it safely. We want you to do it legally. We want you to do it correctly. All right. All right. So that's all I have. Is that you have anything else to add on that? All right. Well, let's talk about today's topic.
All right.
What's today's topic?
These builders. Okay. New construction. All right. So here's the deal. And I want to ask some questions to you all. Anybody sold? And you can just raise your hand yourself or raise your hand in Zoom. Anybody sold any new construction? Recent new construction. All right. Very good. Okay. My question is, were you on the buy side? Were you on the buy side? You had the buyer? Okay. How was the commission for that? Talk to me. How was the commission? Did they offer the typical common 2.5%, 3%, or did they offer a flat fee? I'm just curious. Don't have to tell me what the amount was, but was it 2.5%, 3%, something typical, or was it a flat fee?
I personally have sold one within the last few, last few months that was a 2.5. On the team, we've sold quite a few, and some of them were flat fees and some of them were normal percentages.
Okay, so a flat fee. Was the flat fee less than what a common? Yes. All right. Thank you for sharing that, Jen. What about you, Melissa? I thought I saw you come off mute for a moment.
I did one this past weekend, and it was 2.5%.
Okay. It was the 2.5%.
So, we have run into a lot of twos.
Okay.
And then we have seen, but we have not gone under contract with some. We've shown them, but some flat fees where $500,000, $5,000.
Yeah.
Oh, Melissa, that just hurt my feelings right there. Oh boy. Yes, we're seeing that a lot. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Tammy's hand is raised. I take it that she's had that experience as well. And Sarah has said she's seen a lot of flat fees recently. How do you all feel about that? These flat fees.
Okay. A bunch of that,
right? Exactly. What do you do? Melissa was fortunate. She said she showed them, but obviously her buyer did not go that route. So yeah, that was good. What do we do in this case, Tiffany?
All right.
How do we handle that? Or what can we do?
So here's what I told Teresa. I wanted to call this segment Builders Gone Wild or something, or out of control, right? Because not only is the seller's market crazy, like these sellers are getting a little bit crazy and kind of greedy, but so are these builders. And we're seeing that they are trying to take from us, you know, the ones who are working hard and bringing these buyers in, especially in this crazy competitive market. They are trying to get all that they can get out of the transaction by cutting our income or our commissions short. And so we wanted to talk about and make you aware, if you haven't run into it yet, you probably will, that these builders are starting to do this, and they will get away with it if we let them. So what can you do? We want to talk about what are things that you can do if you're running into these builders that are offering these flat fees, like a $5,000 commission for a $500,000 home, you know. So the things that we want to bring up to you, we want to remind you that you can still ask a builder if they would pay your full compensation. If you're under a written agency agreement and the buyer has agreed to pay you a certain amount, a percentage or what have you, a reminder that even if they're advertising that flat fee, you can still approach that builder. You can tell them what your compensation plan is and ask if they'd be willing to compensate you before you even show that property. Okay, so it does not hurt to have the conversation, to reach out, to tell them where you are under contract for, and find out ahead of time so that you can inform your buyer. The other thing is to notify these buyers of what these builders are doing when it comes to these reduced commissions or flat fees, because the buyer agency agreement includes a section where the buyer will pay the difference. Okay, so we're going to have some education. Make sure your clients really understand that if these builders are only offering such small amounts of compensation, that this is going to trigger that buyer to have to make up or pay the difference. Okay, and so have these upfront conversations with your buyers and make sure that they're prepared for having to contribute towards your compensation if these builders will refuse or will not pay your full compensation. Okay, so we want you to be prepared for this. We want you to be aware of it, and then we want you to make sure that you have these upfront conversations. And maybe the buyers, if they see builders that are just trying to super shoot down the agent's compensation, maybe they will decide not to go that route. There are still some builders out there, as Jen and Melissa mentioned, there are still builders that are offering your 2.5% commissions, but make the buyers aware of that. And let's sort of be strategic here about tackling it ahead of time and from the beginning, as opposed to days before closing, being shocked or surprised or disappointed about your commission. All right.
Another thing too, in addition to that, Tiffany, is that I'm seeing this a lot, and I'm hearing this from a lot of agents as well. If your buyers are just out there looking and they just so happen to stop by that sales center and they fill out that paper and they don't put your name on it, that builder is trying to use that to say, no, we're not going to pay you. We don't know anything about you. So it's very imperative that you educate your buyers ahead of time. Give them a stack of cards. Give them several cards to say, if you stop by, if you on a Sunday just want to get out there and go look at new construction and you're visiting the sales models and all of that, give them a stack of cards and have them hand it right over to that sales rep. Tell them to instruct them to put your name down if they're filling out paperwork. But yeah, and I've even seen them try to say no because the agent didn't actually show up in person, even after doing all of that. So we want you all to protect your money, protect your commission, and let's, make it hard for these builders to get away with some of this stuff that they're doing. So keep that in mind.
All right. Now, Mike, I see your hand up. So we're going to have your question or comment. And then Jamie, we see yours in the chat. So we'll address that one next.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to be closing a deal next week, or it's supposed to close. Let me put it that way. Don't count those chickens before they hatch. Where my buyer had run out of options on what was on multiple listings, so we went searching for sell by owner.
Mhm.
And this particular for sale by owner said, you can bring the buyer, but I'm not paying you.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I had to have a hard conversation with my buyer at that point.
Yeah.
In light of that, I have started doing my buyer agency agreements different than I used to do.
Okay.
And I know I brought this up in the past with Teresa, and some of you may have heard this too, that I'll put in the compensation, basically whatever's being offered in MLS or whatever's negotiated with the builder or with the for sale by owner. And I've revamped that. It is now 3% and 2.5% for new construction. Don't even mention for sale by owner, because the 3% covers that fee.
Yep.
Now, in this situation, my buyer, who is also a seller that I recently closed on, had already paid me a commission on the sale,
Mhm.
and I've got her daughter's house under contract.
Okay.
So I agreed to a flat fee,
Okay.
Okay.
okay, to make the deal happen, really. And so sometimes flat fees work to your advantage. It's better than nothing, especially if you've got a seller that flat refuses. And this seller flat refused to pay our commission.
Right.
Yep. And thanks for sharing that, Mike, because again, not just these builders, but these sellers are what I just call out of control in this market. And so we want you guys to be aware of that. And we want you to be prepared to play a little bit of hardball yourselves, because this is not a market for the weak. You got to be prepared to fight a little bit in this market for what is due to you. All right.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. And I like what Mike said, is that he's changed it to just say 3%.
Yeah.
That's it. Period. In the story. That's what I expect to receive. And the agency agreements goes and tells the buyer how we expect to receive it, or from whom we will receive it from. We're going to seek, first from the seller or the listing agent, and if not them, then the buyer. So being strategic ahead of time and thinking things through like this ahead of time also helps. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. And Jamie Clay has a question, and it says, if the builder is willing to pay the 3% versus 2.5%, what form would we use? Okay, if the builder is willing to pay the 3%, there is a form for that. And it's I get the two confused. Which one is, there's confirmation of compensation. There's another form for compensation as well, but there it is right there. And just complete that, get the parties to sign, whoever needs to sign, get them to sign it. And here's the thing, do that ahead of time.
Before you bring an offer.
That's right.
Yes.
You got to do that ahead of time.
Okay.
Is it in DocuSign? It absolutely is under the NCAR forms. Search the name under NCAR forms.
So great questions, you guys. And absolutely, any of these discussions about compensation need to be addressed prior to, preferably even showing the property, but absolutely prior to, and resolve prior to bringing an offer. Okay, you should not try to do the two at the same time. If you send the offer for compensation and you send the offer for the property at the same time, they could sign one and not the other, and your compensation is left up in the air while they have accepted your client's offer. So make sure you address that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Very good.
Yes.
Good.
Any other experiences or questions about that? Or at this point, we will open up the floor to whatever is happening in your experience. Any questions for us today?
Melissa had one.
Okay.
So I don't work with a lot of buyers, but I did work with buyers this past weekend, and I spent Thursday and Friday just because I had kind of been out of the loop a little bit,
Okay.
and it took me a little longer. And
I think we
maybe we
just,
lost-
yeah, looks like Melissa had to step away for a second.
Is she back? Oh, there she
Okay,
is.
there she is. Okay.
does that work?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
So anyway, the long and the short of it, we spent the day, and we can talk about commissions, right? Because it's just Keller Williams, right? Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yes. We can
Okay.
discuss.
So I was spending a lot of time in the Mebane area, and of course, there's new construction. There's nothing on the market. People are taking like reservations. You have to use their lender to get pre-qualified to go on a waiting list with a deposit. And I had some really, really bad experiences this past weekend.
Mhm.
My client was sitting texting an on-site agency company. It started with an M, Meritage or something. And then I was doing the same as a realtor, and he was getting responses to the local rep, and I was getting sent to Indiana.
Mm.
I
Okay.
booked 2 appointments, and neither one of them showed up for my appointment. He booked an appointment, and they were riding with me, and they showed up for his.
Wow. Trying to cut us off.
Then I was running into several situations where there were waiting lists, things came available. The on-site agent met us, showed us the property, then drove us to Stony Creek to look at a finished model. We come back. The manager said it would be until Monday before we could make an offer on the remaining properties. And then at that time, they started emailing my client, but they would not include me in the emails.
Wow.
And you were
So I
there.
responded back. I said, my client was with me on Sunday. He got on the wait list, and then he was told that he had to have an offer in the next hour. And I mean, I was like, well, I didn't get anything. And their response was, well, the buyer's agent is not in that communicational stream.
Mm, mhm.
Wow. Wow. Seeing that a
Wow.
lot. Builders are really trying to cut
Cut.
out.
And I mean, that's one of our favorite builders out there, DR Horton.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. They, yeah.
And I mean,
you know,
and our local representatives that we love and adore are now actually, there's so many of them that are working in-house with each other that they're actually having to compete with each other.
Mhm.
Right.
And,
right.
and they're not in the loop, or there's a pause, or, there's a lot of automation. And I mean, it's gotten ridiculous.
It really is.
And of course, here we're with our clients, and I mean, we're embarrassed, right?
Yeah. Because we're
So-
supposed to be the professional, the expert, the one who, we're the ones who's supposed to be doing the work.
Right. And they are intentionally
Mhm.
cutting you out. So
Mhm.
yeah, so this is
Well, and my client saw that and then discredited the builder because of the way that they corresponded,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and
Yep.
then selected one that was more reasonable. But then what I'm also finding from just this one experience in new construction this past weekend is that new construction, if they release something, it might not go in the MLS for 3 or 4 days later.
You're right.
So if
Mhm.
you're not showing up to those subdivisions when you possibly have a buyer, then they're all gone by the time they hit the MLS, and they're in there for just comp purposes.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's happening a lot lately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I guess there's not a timetable of when they have to put it in the MLS, is there?
Their rules are a little bit
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
because of the new construction than
Mhm.
it is for just regular listings. And so they do have a lot more flexibility than we do as far as getting listings into the MLS.
Yeah.
And so some of these things, you guys might have to actually take a little bit of action and report this to the MLS is what these builders are doing or how they're cutting us out. We might have to take some social action to make it agents aware of what's happening and to get the word out to clients about this treatment from these builders, this unprofessional treatment, things that are happening. Melissa, to add to what you have just said, I have even had builders who are making buyers join a lottery to even have a chance to win the chance to make an offer on the property. So I mean, they are just coming up with all kinds of crazy things. And here's the ticker is that if they are corporations, if they are their own private entities, they are not bound
That's right.
to our rules from the Real Estate Commission. So we have to take up our argument elsewhere, places that would have some sort of regulation for these builders. And so
I mean, I don't think we have a leg to stand on. I mean, I think that we just have to go with the punches until something changes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
LGI was another one. I met with the sales manager and my clients, and he sat there, he said, Melissa, we pay 2%, but it's going to be the easiest 2% you've ever made. So you make sure that they select us. And their 2% is, I mean, you know, and what's happening in new construction is they're spec building everything out. There's no choices. You can't go in there and pick a color or anything. I mean, it's just a pre-built house. And if you like it, you know, you have the opportunity either to bid or put an offer in, and then, you know, it goes to that next step. I mean, there's not a selection process right now. I mean, their designers have put, you know, an envelope together, and it's somebody's gonna pick it or pay more, right?
Exactly.
And so these are the conditions. These are actual current market conditions, and we need to educate our buyers. We need to know what we're up against as agents, and we need to be prepared for how to navigate through this current market. It is just a perfect storm of all of the factors that have come together to create this kind of a market. And like Melissa said, sometimes, or in some of the things that we are dealing with, and at some point it's going to have to wait it out. But while we're waiting, again, knowledge is power. It's key. Educate these buyers. If your buyers want new construction, but they're still going to get a cookie cutter and they can't pick anything out, that might cause them to change their minds or to consider other options, as opposed to being stuck on a new construction home. And I like what Melissa shared, that her client saw themselves how the builder was being dishonest or uncooperative, and they chose to not use that builder. So, you know, make sure you're developing your relationships with your clients and being honest and letting them see behind that curtain. Don't try to hide or sugarcoat things for your clients. They need to know what's really happening, what's going on here.
Right. And I want to go back and piggyback a little bit on what you said about is the builder an entity. That's one thing to make note of. Are the sales reps for these builders licensed agents or employees of the corporation? That's critical to know, because that helps us as agents, buyer's agents, navigate the situation. All right, are they held and bound by commission rules and license laws and all of these things, or are they just an employee of the builder who's just, you know, sitting in the model? So it's good to know
Who you're dealing with.
Yeah, who you're up against and what organizations are governing what they're doing. Very good. Thank you for sharing, Melissa. We got a question in the chat from Alice. Alice, do you want us to read your question or do you want to come on?
It might be easier to explain. I just want to warn folks.
Okay.
Live and learn. It's an
Thank you.
expensive degree I'm getting, but at any rate, I had some buyers from out of state, showed them around 6 or 7 counties, or maybe 8, I can't remember, a whole lot. Finally, they just thought they found a neighborhood, new construction in near Oxford, outside Oxford. Anyway, so they decided they wanted to build and they wanted a double lot and all of this stuff. So I had a buyer's agency agreement. I checked, there are 2 boxes. There are 2 boxes, one property or multiple properties. I never thought that there would be an issue here. I'm bringing the buyer, they buy the lots first. I got paid a 2.5% commission on the lots, yay. And then there was all this discussion about the build. And at some point fairly early on in the process, the listing agent was a former Keller Williams agent, really nice. And he was CCing me on everything and with them or trying to go through me. And the buyer was like, this is kind of awkward. I'm like, it's okay if y'all want to communicate more directly. But he just CC'd me on all the communications. At some point, the buyers who I had a great relationship with, or I thought I did, said something about, well, does she have to be, we don't want her to be a part of it. I think they were thinking they could save a commission, which they already had a signed buyer's agency agreement. But at any rate, so apparently, I guess I've spoken to one of y'all about this, that I did not check the second box. It's a $500,000 house they're building. I thought I was going to get the commission on that. I brought them. The whole intention was to build the house, but apparently I'm gathering I can be cut out of the commission on the house, actually, that's purchased, unless y'all have some new insight into that. So I will always be checking that second box.
Multiple properties.
Yeah, for new construction or building or any such thing. And Alice, thank you for sharing that. There are some frustrating lessons that on a simple technicality like that, because you did have the one closed deal on the lot, then they can legally cut you out of any further compensation. And if you didn't have any kind of referral agreement concerning the build. And so thank you for sharing that experience so that other agents won't repeat it. But unfortunately, you guys, people are doing their best to try to find ways to cut agents out of their commission. And you are going to have to get sharp and savvy and not allow them to do that to you. This market is just getting wilder and wilder. And so we've got to get smart. We've got to get educated and we've got to look out for each other. All right.
Yeah, that was, and it was hurtful because I thought I had such a great relationship with these people and had clearly gone above and beyond 8 counties later. Into doing something with them. So, but they've been really difficult for the listing agent too. So it's, once things got going. So anyway, and I wanted to ask about, because I appreciated Mike's comment about how he's changing. The way that I write my compensation is 2.5% or as stated in the MLS. Does that cover me? If it's not, I assumed that want to check if that covers me for sale by owners for 2.5%. It's not stated in the MLS, but it's because it's 2.5% or as. So because we have all those wonderful Raleigh 2.4s, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So that would cover you on the for sale by owner piece of it all. But like Mike said, he's going even simpler and just putting just the rate that you're going to expect to receive for compensation, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
To prevent any kind of confusion concerning your compensation.
Right, but you know, so many people are doing 2.5% on existing construction, so that would require always the buyer to come up with the additional 0.5%. And I don't know that I feel comfortable about that. I also don't feel comfortable about people charging 2.5%, giving 2.5% on lot listings. That's just burning my fanny right now.
So I have a follow-up question for all of you based off that, Alice, and thank you for bringing that back up. And thank you, Mike, for, I like simple. I like keeping it simple. So I appreciate just the 3%, whatever you're going to charge the buyer, just put that there and that will cover everything. So I have a question, follow-up question for you all. If you put 3% in the agency agreement, the buyer agency agreement, however, you run into a situation where the listing agent or seller is paying out 2.5%, do you have to seek the 0.5% from the buyer? Mike is saying no, Melissa's saying no, Jen's saying no. Okay, so what that agency agreement is saying, buyer, this is what we're charging, and we're going to seek it first from the seller, listing agent, and then from you. However, you don't have to seek it from them, do you?
I haven't, when I've hit the 2.4, when I have that 2.5, but I have covered myself with that or as stated. Because I've still actually seen occasionally new construction listed at 3%. So if they're going to offer me 3%, I'm going to take the extra half. I don't want to say 2.5% new construction and leave 0.5% on the table.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't know that I want the answer to that question. I haven't sought it except in for sale by owners when once in my life I wasn't able to get the full compensation I asked for. So
okay. I see the McCann's hands are raised, Carrie's and Mike's. Either one of you care to add to that or answer the question?
Or do you have a new question?
Or yeah, new question.
You know, I'm going to build that relationship with that buyer. I'm not going to necessarily seek that additional 0.5 or 0.6% because I want them to come back to me later, even though I may have a 3% in that buyer agency agreement. Now, am I worth 3%? I feel like I am, right? Maybe even worth 4%, right? However, I more than likely will not seek that additional compensation from the buyer.
Right.
And I want to move on and build that relationship as a forever relationship, not just a pay me now relationship.
Right. Exactly. Were you about to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to Teresa's point, just because it says that that is in the agency agreement does not mean that you have to seek or pursue it.
Exactly.
But that is what gives you the right to take your agency agreement to a seller or a builder or whoever and say, I'm under agency agreement for this amount. Will you pay the full compensation? So that gives you the authorization to do so, to find out if they are willing. And again, whatever the compensation situation is going to be, it just needs to be clear and addressed up front before contract.
Exactly.
So everybody knows what to expect.
Exactly. And that verbiage in that agency agreement says expects. What does the firm expect to receive? So we expect to receive this, whether or not we actually get that or seek the difference is another thing. And Jan, you have a follow-up question.
I do, and it's kind of a group question, if that's okay. I am curious of how many times people are running up on listings in which they're giving the buyer 2.5%, but the listing agent is taking 3.5%. And is anybody going back and renegotiating that commission?
Ah, okay. Has anybody seen that?
I've had 2.5 and 4 on the other side with an awful agent, but I just was glad to be out of it. I didn't.
Over there. Jen, that hurt you, didn't it? I saw it. That hurt.
Yes, they took 4%. What did you do for 4%? That's what I want to know. Like, what do you think that you get that? Like, what did you do?
Exactly. And you know what? Can we even do anything about that? Like Jen said, she asked the question. We can ask, try to renegotiate, but do they have to say, oh yeah, you're right. You did such a wonderful job on the other side. Let me share the rest of my commission with you. They don't have to do that. And we don't know until we get that closing disclosure, do we? We have no idea until we see 5,000 and then 15,000. You're like, what?
Yeah. And so with that in mind, you guys, this is why I want you to not feel bad or guilty about asking for your full 3%. Because some of these listing agents have these little agreements where they're getting 4 and offering 2 on the other side. And so if your buyer agency is for 3%, then don't feel bad asking for the 3% if they're offering less than that, because the money on the table is just going to that listing agent.
Exactly.
Now they could have plenty of reasons why they are working it that way. Maybe they're paying for the photographs or the measurements, or they may have monies involved in their listing, but that's not business, right? So the point there being, though, do not feel in any way bad, wrong, guilty to ask for your full compensation.
Exactly. Okay. And I feel like Mike said he feels he's worth 3. And I'll tell you, in some situations, we've worked as if we should get it all 6% on one side. So I agree. Don't feel bad or guilty to ask. Couple of questions here in the chat.
Who are, excuse me, but who are we asking? The other agent when we but we don't even know there's an extra,
right?
Or
you don't
until you get to closing.
So assume that there is and ask for your fair share of it.
Yeah,
I've decided, because this just recently happened to me. That's why I've got a little salt in this wound, because I just this just happened to me last week. And so I've decided going forward, if it's anything less than 3%, I'm going to ask the question up front, just asking you, what is the total commission? What are you taking? I just want to know how much cooperation I can expect on the other side. And if they go and they tell me they've got 3.5, then I know what kind of conversation I'm going to have next.
No
That's
harm.
just, but that,
yeah.
No harm in asking.
You can ask. They may not disclose because they don't have to, right? And so again, I recommend operating with the assumption that it's a full 6 and ask for your half, ask for 3. There's a couple other questions. Jamie says, I have seen in Durham 1.4 to 1.7%. Would you recommend to seek compensation then? Again, Jamie, in anything less than 3, I recommend asking the question. If you have an agency agreement that allows you to ask for anything higher than that, ask for that compensation again before the showing, or at least before bringing an offer.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So recommend asking.
Sarah, did Sarah have a question?
Sarah says, I've seen, let's see.
Where did it go? Here we go.
The chats, you guys are filling up the chat, so we're glad about that.
Yeah.
She says, I've seen that, but didn't find out until the end. I didn't renegotiate because it was a miracle.
Yeah, right.
Especially
FHA offer.
FHA offer, right. And most of the time you don't see it until the end.
Right.
So again, make the assumption there.
Yes.
Stacy says we had that once and the buyer didn't have any issue with making up the difference and the relationship is still strong. And you guys, I've had it once where the listing agent actually was not getting 6%. And I still brought up the 3% that I was under contract with my buyer, and I asked for it. And the listing agent kicked up a lot of fuss and everything. And I didn't understand why, because it was within my right to ask. And it's very simple. When people start to get emotional, just keep it very straightforward and very short. You don't have to join the party just because somebody's, sending you a page-long email. The question is simply this: will you ask your sellers if they will agree to pay my full commission? That is the only thing you have to ask. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be emotional. It does not have to be dramatic. And when he asked his seller, after he went through his whole mulberry loop, he asked the seller, because that's what he is legally obligated to do. The seller said, yes, we would be willing. We want you to pay the full 3%. And then at the closing, I found out that that left him where he was only getting, because he cut his commission side down, where he was only getting 1.5%. So then I understood, which he could have said, I've only got it for 4. He could have said all of that, but instead he went through this big drama party. And so the bottom line is, you don't know, and it could be one way or the other, but I recommend assuming, again, that it's listed at 6% and not feeling bad about asking a simple question of, would the seller agree to pay my full commission at 3%? Okay.
Yeah.
So keep it very simple, keep it non-emotional, and remember that we are doing business.
Right. And the other thing too, not to keep just beat a dead horse, but the other thing is, we don't know what they're charging on the list side of another firm. Some firms out there, their policy says 7% and they get it. So we don't know what that list side total commission is. So again, bottom line, if it's not what you're charging the buyer, ask, and that's all we can do. Yay, they can say yes or no. And if you're satisfied with that, you can then go to your buyer, or not. You don't have to. All right. Was there another?
Yeah, there's a couple more questions.
Okay.
Carrie typed her question. If you have a single figure like 3% in your buyer agency on behalf of KW, do we have to have that even though the listing agent is only offering 2.5%? Do we have to obtain the 5% from the buyer? So Carrie, we did talk about that briefly earlier. You do not have to pursue it. So if you do have the 3% in there, but they're offering 2.5% and they're not going to pay the full 3%, you don't have to pursue the other 0.5%. You just need to be aware of what your compensation is going to be, and you have to enter that information correctly on the green sheet side. And so you're not required to pursue that. So it's important for you to know that.
Okay. Yep. We're gonna answer this last one quickly because there's a tech training at 2. They're gonna kick us out at 2:00. So we don't want to be kicked out. We want to be timely. Any other? What else we got?
Is there any sort of policy or guidance about commission rates in our office? Yes, there is. We have asked you guys many times to check the policies and procedures. They are on the intranet. There is a policy about the guidance for commission rates for different types of, so not just residential, but new construction, vacant land, commercial even. And so do check for that on the intranet. Let me see if we can get through all these questions really quick before we have to go. I'm talking really fast now. Carrie had an example of being cut out of new construction, but Karma took care of it. That's another good thing. Keep it in mind. You're right.
Yay,
Thank
Carrie.
you for sharing that, Carrie. Sarah had success asking them to revise 3 from 2%, 2.5.
Okay.
It was a fuss at first, but then the listing agent thanked me because the seller gave us both 3%.
Wow.
And so, yeah, sometimes we
Yes.
could even end up helping our fellow
That's
agents.
amazing.
Yes.
I love that, Sarah.
That is a great story.
Love
Thank you
it.
for that. Alice says, when should we be asking the question of the listing agent if before contract makes us less competitive? Yes, you should be asking it prior to showing if
Right.
possible, but absolutely prior to contract. Okay. And so Sarah says standard vacant land is 10%, right? Not 2 or 2.5.
Exactly.
You know,
or $500.
right, not flat fees. All right, you guys, today was really wonderful. We have
Thank
like
you
30
for
seconds,
coming.
so we gotta
Comment,
Mike.
one quick comment. Don't forget, they have a buyer agent compensation that the seller has agreed to, and I can't remember what page it is exactly in the listing agreement. I mean, if anything, ask for that page and see what the seller's agreed to and what they're aware of.
Right.
Good.
I know they don't have to share it, but
Very good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. You can always ask. Nothing wrong with
Always
that. There's
ask.
nothing illegal about asking.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for attending, and we are so glad you
Yes.
asked.
Have a good day, everybody.
See you next time.
See
Thank
you in
you.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you? Okay.
I was gonna
Jonathan.
say